Hello and welcome to the Polysite Podcast. This is your host, Anthony Lindsay. I just finished my gym routine. I didn't go to the gym, so that's not true. I'm trying this new thing called a water fast, where you drink water and abstain from eating, like at all, for several days, which is essentially starvation. I guess it'll be called like the Somalian diet. I guess is what you would call it. I'll keep you updated. Headlines. It's time for some headlines.
Welcome to polysite.org.
Almost there, just one more time.
Welcome to polysite.org.
First up, President Trump claimed Iran launched a ballistic missile, but that's not true because it would have been picked up by several United States assets that watch the Iranian airspace. According to the Times of Israel, who may or may not have a dog in this fight, so take this with a grain of salt, a missile from Iran would take 7 minutes to land. So the president is correct in being cautious and vigilant about an attack, but it didn't happen. So quick breakdown on Iran. They have a president, a legislature, and a strong judiciary, but it's based on Sharia law. The power in Iran rests in the supreme leader, who at the moment is the Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who say it's the mission of the Islamic Republic of Iran to erase Israel from the map of the region. So in one corner, we have Iran, led by the Ali Khamenei, and in the other corner, we have Yabani Israel. Israel maintains an occupation of Palestine and subjects the former occupants to checkpoints and the destruction of their homes along the Israel-Palestine border. Palestinians live in refugee camps just outside of Israel on the West Bank and Gaza Strip. As they build homes, Israel bulldozes them and pushes the border further than Palestinian refugee camp territory. Territory is a loose word. Palestinians don't really have much say in the matter because Israel can simply cut off their water supply and power supply until they're forced to move out of the way.
Because I remember being in Palestine some years ago, in an area that was heavily controlled by the Israelis, and I said to my Palestinian hosts, there's nothing I can do. I will have no effect. And they said, but at least you will be a witness. You will be a record to our suffering, and we will not go unnoticed. And it's for that reason that I called for the recall of this chapter. I'm very sad. I'm not anti-Israeli. I'm not anti-Semitic. I supported the state of Israel. But in the 40 years I've known the state of Israel and sometimes had a home there, I've seen it completely change. It changed from a left-wing, socially directed country to an extreme right-wing regime that is behaving in the most criminal fashion and defying the world and unscrupulously using the Holocaust to justify what they're doing. And it's time that rag was torn away from them.
But I digress. A military occupation may not be much of a problem for the American sensibilities, but for Muslims around the entire world, the vicious and humiliating treatment of Palestinians is at its very least criminal, and could be considered a war crime. There's been increased push for a two-state solution to the 50-year occupation. Anyway, the battle between Israel and Iran is as lopsided as it gets, since Israel has the full backing and support of the United States and the United States military. One thing that Israel has in its favor is the fact that Palestine does harbor Hamas and a few different terrorist organizations, and they fire rockets into Israel. They're more like pipe bombs that they launch via catapult. They're fairly weak bombs, but bombs nonetheless, and that is a legitimate terrorist attack. So, two things. Israel, in retaliation to any bombs coming into the city of Israel, will launch missiles made in the good old US of A into Palestine, and it has devastating effects. So you have to imagine a terrorist organization in Palestine will launch these pipe bombs via catapult essentially into Israel and kill someone or two people, and then Israel will launch a Hellfire missile essentially into Palestine and kill 15 or 20. Fast forward to today, past the perpetual wars in the Middle East, where Trump tweeted, Iran just test fired ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israel, which should be alarming since Israel is considered by many to be America's unofficial 51st state, and the retaliatory strike would have been nuclear. He also claimed they are working with North Korea, and not much of an agreement we have, is what he tweeted. A couple points. First, there was footage run on an Iranian television or Iranian state-sponsored television which showed a missile launch. So the president may have misinterpreted the television box for a daily briefing from the cabinet level departments. Fortunately, it was a rerun of an Iranian missile test, so no worries. It could have happened to anyone over the age of 60. Second point, the president is correct to fear an Iranian missile strike. But before we launch a nuclear-tipped missile at the Republic of Iran, let's verify whether they actually launched a missile and then ask why. So Iran has had a long-standing beef with Israel because of their treatment of the Palestinians and the fact that they essentially took the land from the population that was already there, which is ironic considering the Jews have been pushed off of their land several times in the past. Nevertheless, after their being pushed out of Germany, they were given the former Palestine to create the new state of Israel. Fast forward to today, and Iran is still making threats against the state surrounded by Muslim countries. Back to Trump for a bit. Recently, Trump restarted his criticism of the Iran nuclear deal, saying that
this is one of the worst deals ever made by any country in history. The deal with Iran will lead to nuclear problems. All they have to do is sit back 10 years, and they don't have to do much, and they're going to end up getting nuclear. I met with Bibi Netanyahu the other day. Believe me, he is not a happy camper.
So a couple points. That's not true. So Native Americans had a pretty bad deal, and that was a pretty lopsided deal, as was the Louisiana Purchase. The deal was put in place to monitor the Iran's nuclear energy program via a system of intense international intervention, and Iran hasn't reneged on their promise.
Very simply, and telling the truth, it's the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, has certified that Iran is in full compliance with this agreement as made. Everyone else says so, and that, as Trump has said over and over, and now it's being reiterated by Tillerson as well. The issue with Iran has nothing to do with nuclear weapons. It has to do with submission to the United States, which to some of us thinks it's submission to Israel and Saudi Arabia.
They haven't weaponized their nuclear energy, and they have abided by the international protocol that all 5 members of the Security Council agreed to, including the United States, United Kingdom, Russia, France, and China, plus Germany, which is where you get where the P5+1 comes from, because there are 5 permanent members and a rotating 6 member. So in that case, the rotating 6 was Germany. Trump seems to have a tendency to want deals that are 100% in his favor. I'm not sure if that's necessarily a bad thing in the context of international negotiations. One of the biggest criticisms I had against the Obama administration was that Obama came to the table ready to give the other side 60% of what they wanted and then negotiated from there. So Trump is a wild card, which could either mean America gets 100% of what it wants or nuclear war. Go to polysci.org and you can submit any questions you want answered on the show or any really cool topics that you want covered on the show. If you're a teacher, professor, you can submit your research and we'll cover it on the show. Again, go to polysci.org and submit your questions. Later.